We are back, the weekend show here. I am Kenny Shelton on the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Thanks for being with us this morning. And it's been 37 years since Elvis passed away. At the time of his death, Elvis was engaged to be married to Ginger Alden. Ginger has been written about in many books, but has not told her story until now. Her best-selling book is out. It's called Elvis and Ginger. And joining us now is the author of the book. She is Ginger Alden. Hello, Ginger.
Hi, Kenny. Thank you for having me.
Well, first I want to say thank you for being here, and thanks for writing the book. My listeners know that I'm a big Elvis fan, and I generally like to keep up with what's the latest, but when I saw the name Ginger Alden writing a book, it really got my attention because I know you were Elvis's fiancee. I loved your writing style, and I love the fact when you wrote the book, too, it sort of went in chronological order so we could kind of follow, almost from the day-to-day, week-to-week basis how things were with you and Elvis. It was really well done, and as a fan, thank you for writing that.
Well, I appreciate that. Better late than never, but it had to be done, and it was a very emotional journey for me. But as I said, one that had to be done, and the response has been overwhelming, and I'm just grateful when a lot of fans will say to me, "Now I understand," and that's meant the world to me.
The book has so many tidbits in it, so much information in it, and as a lot of people that are big Elvis fans, they sort of know a lot of the chronology in the last year of his life, but you kind of shed some light on so many great topics, including, I didn't know you were the person that actually picked the jumpsuit Elvis wore on that New Year's Eve concert in Philadelphia in 1976.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a choice between this and I think it was a blue rainbow swirl was the other one, and I was thinking America, Eagle, so I went with that one, and he wore it, and it was a fantastic show.
Let's go back to the beginning, the first night you met Elvis. Actually, George Klein, Elvis's longtime friend, well-known air personality himself, he invited your sister Terry to Graceland, and along the way, you and your sister Rosemary accompanied her. So there's Elvis with three Aldens, Terry being the invitee, yet you stole the show. Was there any friction or problem between you and Terry over all that?
Well, no. It was funny because I always said for us, growing up in Memphis, I said, the opportunity to walk inside Graceland was like going to the White House for us, meeting the president. And when my sister did receive this call from George Klein, it was on November 19th in 1976, and we were just flabbergasted. And, she had a boyfriend at the time. I was also seeing someone, and in our minds, a date with Elvis was something that was just would happen in the movies. We thought, oh my goodness, my sister Terry's going to get to meet Elvis, shake his hand, we get to peek inside Graceland, we'll come home and have a great story to tell our friends. So, but that night definitely turned out to be something else. But no, my sisters, we were all so supportive of each other, and we're all still very, very close. But yeah, my life changed after that night.
Did you kind of feel like Elvis, being an only child, and his mother had passed away many years ago, he was sort of searching for love, but also a family, and I think he really seemed to fall in love with your whole family, it appeared.
He was such a good man and such a good person, and he did include my family on many things. I know in some books it would say, oh, Ginger was asking him to bring her family and all this, and it was completely not true. And another reason why I wrote the book, there's so many exaggerations and speculations going on out there, but Elvis was the one that which I wrote about. My parents were going through a divorce, and he was the one that wanted my mom to come, or my sisters, and he actually got upset one time when my sister Terry couldn't come, and he made sure he sent a plane for she and her girlfriend to be at some couple of his shows. And family was very important to him. He had, my God, cousins on staff, stepbrothers on staff, guards working at the gate. His uncles were working at the gates, and he was a very family-oriented man.
You must have been starstruck at first. After all, he is Elvis Presley. When did you begin to relax around him and see him as a boyfriend and not the biggest entertainer in the world?
Well, certainly, I was in awe when I met him, but the more we were together, he was down to earth, made you feel comfortable when you were alone with him, and the more I was around him, and I just began getting used to him. There's not one defining moment where, I was always aware of who he was, of course, but just being around him, and I started to slowly, over time, just feeling more comfortable being with him.
Do you remain in contact, Ginger, with any of the folks you got to know during your time with Elvis?
I did for a short time with George Klein and Ed Parker for a little while. I have some wonderful talk with George, a few years back. But time goes on, and just kind of moved away, and I was actually shocked when Elvis passed away that so many people turned on each other. People I thought were friends. This was a tight-knit group, and I was a newcomer coming in there. And, when Elvis passed away, next thing you know, things exploded and people were turning on each other. So, and Ed Parker has since passed away, of course.
Yeah.
But, it was interesting.
It's. I'm trying to put myself in your place, as I'm sure a lot of people would. I mean, you're in love, going to be married to Elvis Presley, and all of a sudden his tragic death just pulls the rug out from everything. Did you start to feel, because you and Elvis were the close ones, you really hadn't, I think, bonded with the whole group at that point. Did you ever feel or start to feel unwelcome at Graceland? Like, how did that go?
Well, it wasn't. It was when stories began coming out, as I said, speculations and different stories starting to come out in tabloids not long after he passed away. And it meant the world to me when Elvis's father, Vernon, called me and said for me, not to believe anything unless it came directly from him. And he told me I was always welcome at Graceland. But, it was something that I had to deal with, being in the position I was in as being engaged to Elvis. And, it was unfortunate at the time. But I got through it. I had a strong family and friends, and, life went on.
You had some things at Graceland, some personal possessions. You kind of had to decide pretty quickly what to take and what to leave. That was part of the book, I believe.
Yeah, but Elvis had asked me to move in at Graceland, and it wasn't my way. I said, I know a lot of the female population hates me for that, but at the time it wasn't something I felt comfortable with. But I did keep, a few little articles of clothing there and an overnight kit. And when Elvis passed away, I went up and took some of the items out of my bathroom upstairs there. But I left a couple of things, just kind of way to kind of remain a little bit at Graceland, but I'm sure all that's been changed around now.
You've got a lot of self-control because being a fan and remembering so much over the years, the books that came out that had some unpleasant things to say about you, I'm surprised you didn't just call an emergency press conference to try to set the record straight at that time. It must have been frustrating for you.
Well, moving on the way I did, and I ended up moving up to New York after just a few years, and I began working, and over quite a few years, my friends and family would point out certain things, but things only, I still hear things daily, and it blows me away. It's just, you never know what they're going to say. And, I'd gone forward, worked, got married, had my son, but these false stories, and as I said, speculations and exaggerations, they only sometimes got worse. So that's the whole reason I wrote my book, just to get the truth out.
We're talking to Ginger Alden. She was Elvis's fiancee at Elvis's death, August 16th, 1977. She's written a great book. It's called Elvis and Ginger. It was a bestseller for a while there on Amazon, and a great read if you're a fan and want to pick up a copy. I recommend it. And talking about the book, Ginger, you waited until your son was in college to write that book. How did your son react to knowing about your relationship with Elvis?
Well, I wrote in the beginning of my book what it was like, even children. I was amazed that children his age, he came home one day asking me, who was Elvis? And kids on the bus, I think they told him he had these big pair of sunglasses on that he'd worn to school that day, and he said the kids on the bus were calling him Elvis. Who's Elvis? And, I was like, he's a great entertainer. I didn't explain to him at that point, well, your mother was engaged to this man, and as time went on, he understood. We didn't talk about it a lot. But as he got older, he certainly, likes Elvis's music and respects him, and he respected the story that I wrote, and he understands,
I read the book in about a week, here and there I would take time to read, and it seemed like as I would stop reading and start reading, it seemed like the dates or the times you were with Elvis would generally always include times for you two reading books either together or reading books to each other. Elvis was interested in numerology, spirituality,
right.
Subjects like that. Did you continue those interests after he passed away?
I tried to, and I wrote honestly. It wasn't the easiest to understand, but I was there for him. I found it intriguing what he was into. I certainly didn't expect it in the beginning. Here's this rock and roll icon, and, he's sitting in bed reading with me. But I thought it was great that he was thirsty for knowledge, and, it was where he was in his life. I never felt like he wouldn't do other things as well, but it was just at the stage he was in his life with me, and I was there for him, and I did read the books for a while, but, I would have needed Elvis to guide me, and over time I just kind of drifted away from them.
You know, he'd been doing that for quite a while. I think there was a little period where he backed off the books and came back on. I think he was on a quest to learn, and I think that's something, like you said, he could have gone on to do anything in life. And of course, obviously, being the great entertainer he was, that would be what his calling was. You know, you're with him pretty much, I think, just about every concert. Once you met him, it seemed like you were always there at the shows. What was different about Elvis on stage versus off stage? Did you see a different guy on stage than the man you knew from Graceland?
You know, I felt he was quite similar. You know, he loved to joke. He would joke. I don't know if you ever were able to see any of his shows, but he was, you know, he loved to joke around with the audience, and that's the way he would be off stage. You know, he did puff on an occasional cigar, which you wouldn't see him doing that on a stage. At least I didn't.
No, I don't think he did that on stage.
I don't think he smoked on stage, you know. But, you know, I felt he was similar. I didn't think there was any drastic change, you know, in Elvis off. You know, he was just, you know, an exciting person to be around and fun. And, you know, like I said, I didn't think he was really dissimilar.
You know, you mentioned the concerts. Yeah, actually, my first concert ever was Elvis in Roanoke for my 9th birthday. My parents took me to see Elvis.
Oh, great.
And I'll never forget that night. We saw him 2 years later in Roanoke. And even at that young age, there are vivid memories of those nights I'm never going to forget. And, of course, we have so many concerts to see nowadays on YouTube. But, of course, the great shows he did all around. What was the routine after the shows? Did you kind of assist Elvis afterwards, or what was he like after a concert?
Yeah, you know, he was always, you know, cared so much how they went, and he would usually call in, you know, some members of his staff, and he would sit, you know, either in bed or in the suite, and you know, talk about the shows, and you know, if any little thing went wrong, you know, he was a stickler, you know, he was a perfectionist. If there was a squeak from a microphone, you know, he just stopped, would notice it, and apologize to the audience, and start back over again. But he wanted things to go so well, so he would usually talk about the shows for a little while, and then, you know, as his way of winding down, he would start going over his books again. And just, you know, when a new idea popped in his head, you know, he was so energized by it, and he was so excited with these books and sharing it, and that's usually what he did after his shows.
You know, I have to refer to some other books that said that after that tour that, of course, didn't happen in August of '77, Elvis was going to announce some different changes. So do you know what he was planning, what we might have learned, perhaps announcing your wedding day publicly? Do you know if anything was like that was really planned after that tour?
Elvis never spoke with me about any sudden career change, so I don't know where, you know, what book that originated or who actually said that, because that was never discussed in front of me. So, you know, but I did, you know, feel he wanted changes within his group, and he was going to announce our engagement at the end of that last tour when, you know, his show in Memphis.
You know, as some other authors have said, Elvis has some great loves in his life. Anne Margaret comes to mind as one. Also, Linda Thompson's name does come up. Obviously, Priscilla. But now you have something. Well, Anne Margaret and Elvis co-starred in a movie, of course. But you have something that a lot of people don't have, and that's your image on an Elvis song during the Elvis in Concert TV special. If you watch that show, of course, you're introduced to Elvis. By Elvis to the crowd, and also your image is superimposed on screen as he sings "Hurt." Was that planned out? How did that all come about?
No, you know, I had no idea, and I believe that may have aired on, I want to say October 3rd. Forgive me if I'm wrong.
You're right,
October
yeah.
3rd. And, you know, I was watching, and when I saw that, I just broke down. I mean, it was so emotional. But no, I mean, Elvis had no idea that I was being filmed, and I don't believe he ever saw the footage from that. But it was quite an emotional evening to see that, and I'm so happy that, you know, that was captured.
Yeah, I mean,
documented.
You're there forever.
I'm there.
Elvis and Ginger, you know, you've got that going for sure. You know, he seemed to be a fan of keeping up with the times and technology. Do you think Elvis would have been a big internet guy and Facebook and Twitter and all that?
You know, Kenny, when I knew him, he was pretty private, you know, and I don't know. I can't see him really being on Facebook. You know, I always laugh and say I think he would have gotten a kick out of the video games. You know,
yeah.
you know, probably maybe a couple of the war games or some of the, you know, I think he would have really liked that. But I don't know. You know, he was pretty private. I don't know how often he would have been on. If he was on Twitter, you know, he'd probably say hi to the fans and things. But to be on there on a daily basis, and Facebook can be good and it can also be very bad. So, you know, I don't know. would have been interesting to see.
You know, the phenomenon of Elvis shows really no signs of slowing down or stopping in terms of the visitors to Graceland each year. Are you surprised at that? And now that the book is out, would you consider taking part in some of those fan gatherings to sort of be a part of their experience?
I mean, yeah, years ago I used to meet with various fans, and then, as I said, and I moved away from Memphis and worked for a while. But I'm amazed, at the support and the love. It's so fantastic. He would be so happy that's been shown for him, and it's just a testimony to how much he influenced others' lives through his music and his films. And I have people daily telling me on Facebook, I was in the Army and I played his gospel songs and it lifted my spirits, or my child was sick and they played this, and it doesn't get any better than that. And that's what he wanted in life, and I'm so proud of him, and it's so wonderful.
Ginger Alden.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish that thought.
No, I was going to say, but fan gatherings. I mean, I guess it would depend on the particular gathering. But sure.
The book is out. You were, I think, on Amazon's best-selling list there for a while. It's well done. Has there any talk of an Elvis and Ginger movie? I mean, is that a possibility?
Yeah, it also made the New York Times bestseller list. So
yeah, there you go.
Great.
Yeah.
There was some interest. There's some things that we've been talking about, but it would have to certainly be done the right way and very, very respectfully. So you never know.
Well,
we'll see down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an interest in it, and that aspect of Elvis's life is somewhat mysterious because of the just the way his life went the last 9 months. You really shed a lot of light, positive light on it, I think, for a lot of people. And you're a talented lady. I know you've done your own acting and modeling career and all that as well. So,
this was my first book, so I put my heart and soul into it, and I wanted to write it through the eyes, and reliving it at the age that I was. I've heard a couple of people say, why didn't she write it from the age she was? And I thought I wanted to relive that moment by moment and try to put the reader there and how it felt, and that's what I did. And I hope the fans, walked away with a better understanding of his last 9 months, and will remember him, for his charitable contributions and the joy that he's just, continually, continues to give to the world.
Ginger Alden is the author of Elvis and Ginger. The book is obviously available for purchase. And Ginger, to help me, what are some of your Facebook pages? I know there's Ginger Alden. There's also is it Elvis and Ginger Facebook as well, or?
Yes, there's a group. We have a very nice group called Elvis and Ginger. Elvis and Ginger group.
Okay, all right.
And I have my Facebook page. So
if you want to find out more, that's got some good insight into it. You do some nice postings there as well. Ginger, I appreciate all the time you've given our listeners and me this morning. Thanks so much for being on the show, and continued success.
Thank you so much, Kenny.